Hello, New Zealand. Well, this is breaking news, and we are just waiting announcement of whether we have a new Prime Minister. Joining me is Simon O'Connor. How are you, Simon?
Not the new Prime Minister. Just want to put into that speculation straight up front. Look, classic political drama. I'm sure we're going to get into it, but I know actually you've got the live feed when required. So just to let our viewers know, stay tuned here. Obviously, Bob and I will be giving analysis, but we'll be able to bring you that live feed as it happens.
Yeah, and look, at the moment, our title says Luxon survives coup, ? Big question mark as to, you know, whether he has survived or have we got a new leader. Simon, I know you appeared on Herald Now this morning. Well done. What was your general commentary there?
Well, it was slightly mixed insofar as I predicted that this would be a quick meeting. I thought this would not take the 3 or so hours it's taken, so I was wrong on that. But look, my basic theme, Bob, my basic thought is this is a total mess for National. It's always recoverable. I don't actually think, and we should tease this out, it's going to see the end of the centre-right vote, but it's a huge mess no matter what happens here today, whether Luxon stays, whether there's a new leader. This is exceptionally damaging to National, and it's just rinse and repeat. I mean, this was only a few months ago, wasn't it? They did this, and now here we are again.
I'm still trying to figure out why Luxon responded. I mean, to me, it was a media beat up. To me, it was a media attempted coup. And for some reason, I don't know what it is about National MPs, they seem to listen more to the media narrative than they listen to their constituency. Am I right in that?
So somewhat. I think the media, and you and I have been debating this since last night. In fact, we've been debating this for a long time. I would say the media is amplifying things. They haven't made this out of nothing. I think there are MPs, sadly within National, who are continuing to leak, to brief against the leader, against colleagues. I've said on Herald Now this morning, on Morning Report, I've said it on Political Playback. They've got ambition. And they're more than happy to have all the cards thrown up in the air, all the risks that go with the leadership spill, successful or otherwise, in the vain hope of getting ahead. The media, of course, picks up on that, happy to run those stories. I think it's fair to say they are, overall in mainstream media, would be delighted for National to be damaged in some way. It increases the chance of the centre-left. So there's all of that swirling around, but I'll probably just keep repeating myself. This is just so politically damaging.
Okay, I am just monitoring a number of things. I've got comments coming through, and so we are seeing some of your comments, and we will display those. You can comment on our YouTube channel or on our Facebook, Family First Facebook. We're already building up our audience, so a lot of people watching up, and I'm also monitoring the live feed. So as soon as whoever the next Prime Minister appears, we will cross to that. So thanks to Gordon, our producer, who's made this all technically possible. Simon, and so, yeah, our title currently is Luxon Survives Coup, ? What's going on in the caucus meeting right now? How tense is it? What's the process? I mean, have they got a boxing ring set up? Or is it just a nice cup of tea and a relaxed chat?
Oh, it'll be anything but relaxed. And if there has been a change, there will be. So my wife is messaging me. This is going to be, as you're monitoring the feed, my phone is busily vibrating, and now it's Rachel. So look, it will be tense.
Do you want me to talk while you talk to your wife? Because I don't want you getting in trouble.
More trouble, Bob. More trouble. No, I don't have anything to share with her yet. I don't know what's happened. I don't know what's happened. This is first and foremost, the fact that this has been tightly controlled, completely normal. And it wouldn't matter if it's National in this case or Labour or any of the other parties, tightly controlled.
Yep.
The caucus room will be set up as normal, which means all the MPs are just sitting on chairs facing a front table, which is where the leadership will be. So think the party president, the whips, the leader, the deputy leader. And they would have been discussing backwards and forwards because caucus, everyone's equal. Everyone gets the chance to have their say. I assume if Luxon remains, it won't be as tense or as frantic as it is if there has been a change. And just to elaborate on that, if he's held, look, there'll be hurt feelings. There'll be people worried about their careers, worried about repercussions. But in some ways, it's a continuation. Luxon's team will be set up. Luxon's team will be there with him now. Again, if he's survived, talking through talking points and so on. If there has been a change, though, it will be frantic. Capital F, bolded, underlined, and italicized, because now you've got a clear room of winners and losers. The winners will be excited, and by the plural, obviously the person or persons, deputy and leader who have succeeded, and their supporters will be all wrapping around them, trying to make first impressions. They'll be frantically wanting to control the media narrative. When do they go out? How? So on and so forth. And then there'll be all the hurt. So it's tense, messy, could well be frantic if there's been a change.
Yeah. Okay. Look, let's just get some commentary going just to prove that your comments are coming through. And New Zealand Sound, she says, what did Pink do? Christopher Pink's name has been mentioned a lot. I tell you what, there's a lot of Chris's in Parliament. Chris Hipkins, Chris Luxon, Chris Bishop, Chris Pink, and there's probably a few others that I missed. But there has been a bit of chatter around Chris Pink. Is he putting his name up as a possible candidate?
I don't believe so. I've seen no indication of that. I think you've got to treat most of the rumours coming through media, or rather most of the reports coming through media, or even what you see on the likes of X, with a grain of
exactly.
It's very hard, Bob, and to the question to know what is true or not. But I can say, having been through, I think, 5 leadership changes, 3 which were rather untidy. The first one was easy. That was key to English. But look, the games are played within games. So look, it's possible that there's truth to what the reporters are saying, in this case around Chris Pink. But equally, that could be fake news, to use that term, put out by supporters of one of the camps raging against Luxon, to try and say, hey, look, if he's doing the numbers or he's doing this, then of course everyone else should vote. So it's games within games, rumours around rumours. Again, it's what just adds, at one level, I can say here now, Bob, sitting out of Parliament, sort of an interesting drama. But when you're in it, it's miserable. It's totally miserable.
Yeah, and of course you're getting pigeonholed as you come into Parliament, and look, they didn't seem very happy. And then, of course, if you don't speak to the media, you suddenly it's all a conspiracy and that. Like I saw Minister of Health Simeon Brown come in, and he just didn't want to talk. It was quite clear, and yet he was sort of made out as though he looked grumpy, etc. Of course, there was this comment: the Minister of Women actually didn't speak up for Erica Stanford possibly being the replacement. This is what she said.
A friend of mine, but she's not a Prime Minister.
Was Chris Pink calling around doing the numbers for Erica?
He never rang me.
Did you just say that Erica Stanford is not a Prime Minister?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't
Whoa.
believe she's a Prime Minister. She's a very good friend of mine, but I don't believe she's a Prime Minister.
Do you think that the Prime Minister is the best person to lead the National Party?
Yes, I do.
election?
Absolutely.
Does he have your support?
Absolutely. He always
Oh, okay. Minister for Women isn't supporting Erica Stanford as the new Prime Minister. That's got to be a headline.
Look, probably not the most judicious of comments. Obviously, it's Nicola's to make. But this is illustrative of, well, a couple of things. Firstly, this is why spills or attempted spills or coups, whatever word you want to use, are so damaging. Comments like that will hurt. If they are friends, then that's a stinging comment to make about a colleague, and certainly one with ambition, because Erica is ambitious, and I think there is potential prime ministerial qualities there. In fact, many of the people who get named have those qualities, and I better be clear to our viewers, this is not me making a side one way or another, but if you looked at a National Party caucus or Labour, there'll be people who go, oh yeah, they could be, they wouldn't. So it's a pretty harsh comment to be made, actually, and it won't be forgotten or easily forgiven. And I can't speak for Erica, of course, but this is just illustrative of the hurt. And so also you've had 3 hours of all of this going on, Bob, inside the caucus room. What did people say? They probably won't share, if very unlikely to share what was said, but they'll remember it and in their heart. But just quick context, of course, Nicola Grigg went in or came into Parliament at the same time as Chris Luxon. I think it's a pretty fair observation to make that her roles and positions have been very much tied to Chris Luxon and being tied to the fact that they came in together. So she's clearly made the decision to tie her colours very firmly to that mast going in. But yeah, for the rest of them, it's awful. As I keep saying, miserable. Yeah. But how do they know your flights? How do they know your flights?
The other thing I was fascinated to know, and look, we're going to take a feed from Herald now. They are broadcasting live, so we're going to sort of sneak into their YouTube feed and just watch the official announcement. It is all set up. This is what you'll see. So there we go. It's and where is that? That's in the 9th floor of the Beehive, isn't it? That's the Prime Minister's office area. Is that right?
Partly right. You're in the Beehive. That's the banquet hall. Yeah. So it's downstairs. It's on the first floor, effectively.
Here we go.
And Katie, we'll just leave it there because Prime Minister Christopher Luxon is about to address media.
Here we go.
Straight to that press conference live now.
Luxon.
I think he's survived, hasn't he?
Hey, well, kia ora, good morning, everyone. As you know, this is an absolutely pivotal election with some very, very serious issues at stake for New Zealand. We think we have made tremendous progress as a government, rebuilding economic growth, financial discipline, restoring law and order, and certainly strengthening education and healthcare. But we also acknowledge that we have a lot more to do. Our plan to fix the basics and to build the future is a positive plan, a very positive plan to help New Zealand realise the innate potential that it has. There was a confidence vote in my leadership this morning at our caucus meeting, and I have the full support of our caucus. And our caucus is united and it is determined to win this election. Our focus is on National's positive plan to fix the basics and to build the future, so that we realise the incredible potential that sits in this country and that we set it up for our kids and our grandkids so they can do better than we can. It's also an opportunity to frame the choice for voters, which is crystal clear on November the 7th. An opposition that wants to take New Zealand backwards, or a national government that wants to fix the basics and build the future and with a plan that takes New Zealand forward. With that, I want to say thanks everyone. We're going back to work and we're moving on. Thank you very much.
There we go. Luxon has survived the coup. Wow. Breaking news.
Yeah. As I said this morning, you and I have been talking about it. It was 50-50 whether he would or not. But I'm sorry to say, it's still immensely damaging.
It's messy. Yeah.
Oh, totally is. Look, it's a rinse and repeat. I'm sorry that I'm rinsing and repeating my phrasing, but it's a rinse and repeat of last time. Everything's fine. except of course you still have to call an emergency meeting. Everything's fine, except it's 3 hours of discussion around unity. Everything's fine. I have the full support of caucus. It's like, well, why is this happening? And then not fronting the media beyond, I've had enough of it. And to be fair, from his point of view, I can certainly understand why he doesn't want to take a lot of questions. I think there's clearly been a firm discussion to get those MPs, including Bishop and Erica Stanford, behind him. But it's still not good. This just means it's going to, the problem is going to carry on. That's what I'm trying to say.
I mean, I was talking about this on Daybreak, and I just felt that this was a media concocted coup. And that's because I saw them go hard against the media. Even in his tweet, he said it's from various media reports. I just wish Luxon would stop judging his decisions on what the media response is. I saw that during the pro-life debate. I felt he had a pro-life stance, but then he cowered when the media came on thick and fast, as you well experienced yourself. But they'd spent 2 weeks going after him for, I thought, were pretty lame reasons. That he went on a Defence Force plane, that he used a wrong analogy in Rotorua, and then what was the third one? The MMP referendum, where he's not the president. He can't do an executive order. He's got to win over the party. The whole reason we're not voting on 3 to 4 years is the fact that he's got to get all the coalition parties on side. He didn't get a majority. That's why it's been postponed. So he can't just say we're going to have an MMP referendum. People should have understood that, but the media didn't explain it. So to me, this was just a media concocted coup. I'm even stronger on it now. Sorry, Simon, and I know you're going to push back on it, and fair enough too, because you'll understand it better than I do. But when you had a poll last week showing that actually National had increased and Labor had plummeted, and Luxon was still the preferred Prime Minister. In fact, I saw both TV1 and TV3, and look, just if you are joining us, the breaking news is that Luxon has survived. He is the Prime Minister, no change. He has battered it all off. Actually, Simon, just before I go to these polls and just have a go at the media, would this suggest to you that it wasn't being driven by the national MPs themselves, or did they fail in their coup?
I think it's another failure. I suspect, speculating here again, there hasn't been agreement around who the replacement is, or people who had said that they would look to change didn't actually come through in the end. So I think my position remains, this is not media driven alone. Don't get me wrong, the media have really pushed into this. You and I talked on Political Playback last week how, they're putting the boot into Chris Luxon around polling numbers and so forth, particularly in the negative. And yet, Hipkins has seen, an 8-9 point drop in recent polls and very little comment. So of course there's bias and misdirection, but I think there is trouble still within the National Party. These rumours didn't come from nowhere. And the Prime Minister's, and I wouldn't have done it, says me, put out a tweet and call a meeting. You don't do that unless there's some substance to it. If it was just the media, you would have done a stand-up yesterday, as in Luxon, and told them where to shove it, a little bit like he did a couple of months ago. But he didn't. He had to call the MPs back in. And look, he's survived the vote. He's survived today. But my fear is, Bob, and we can lean into this a bit further, most Kiwis are just picking up on more mess, more leadership rumblings, more problems. That's all they know, and that's why it's damaging.
Yeah, it doesn't look good. In fact, I was remembering back to, and I mean, you were in the room at the time, 2020, when we were doing Value Your Vote, and we prepared it with Simon Bridges as the leader who was leading into the election. Then he got rolled for some unknown reason. And I wonder about the media push on that one as well, because he was pushing back against Jacinda's COVID narrative. And then they bring in Todd Muller with the now editor of the Post, Matthew Hooton, as his champion, and that survived a month. And then it was Judith Collins. We had to do 3 prints of Value Your Vote because the leader kept changing. So yeah, it was hard work, but it's just I mean, they're polling well. It's like they're trying to shoot themselves in the foot.
We're not trying, they are. It's a mess. And I know I keep coming back to that, and I want to be clear. Look, I'm not a member of the National Party anymore. I do want to see the centre-right win, despite my frustrations with particularly what National's doing in a number of areas, including the economy. I do not want to see the likes of Labour, Te Pāti Māori, Greens, TOP getting anywhere near the Treasury benches. But this is undoubtedly National continuing to shoot itself in the foot. There was news last week that was good for National. You've touched on it. The polls were good. The leadership trend was good, or at least it wasn't going backwards. Labour had made some somewhat controversial announcements, but unfortunately, National began talking about itself. And now this week, they're talking about themselves. And the other thing, again, we can elaborate on this if you like, but the MPs will be hurting now. The National MPs, they will be angry. They will be frustrated. Even if, and I don't think this is the case, even if there was no grounds to this, if you were right, this is media only, they'll still be angry, Bob, because they've been dragged away from their homes at the last moment, spending hours to get to Wellington, running that gauntlet of media, the speculations. They'll have been bombarded with texts and emails from party members, hammered, they'll be tired, they're frustrated, they've just spent 3 hours debating with one another, and in some ways nothing's changed, except words will have been exchanged, feelings are hurt, egos are bruised, ambitions are dented, and there's 3 months to an election.
Yeah. So, okay, look, let's just, there's a whole lot of commentary coming through. We're doing very well here. Okay, let's just grab some of these. So Helen says, better devil than other extremely wicked devils. I'll come back to that actually, Helen, because you make a very good point about what the alternative would have been if they'd rolled Luxon. Simply Green says, are National polling well because they're doing a good job or because Labour was so much worse? That's actually a very good question, Simon, because the media will not actually haul Labour across the coals, because in that last graph that I showed you, Labour had dropped, actually it shows on this one, they had dropped almost 4%. And this is the type of analysis that is not happening with the media. And so, look, I go back to that question that he's Simply Green's asking. Are National polling well because of doing a good job, or is Labour awful?
I think it's actually neither, not to cause controversy, Simply Green. I think if we keep that graph up that you've got, that bar chart, National Basic has moved 0.5%, which is better than going backwards. They've just picked up, I would suggest, a little bit of vote from New Zealand First. What's happened with Labour is because of their quiet, not really going anywhere, vote has moved to the likes of the Opportunity Party. Not completely. I mean, you can see there it's not completely equal. Labour's decrease is not Opportunity's exact increase, but Labour voters have moved to top. So I think that's where the change is happening.
Okay. Here's the trend line just while you're commenting.
Yeah. So you can see there, ACT New Zealand First. I mean, Greens had a bit of a bump. Top's had a bit of a bump. I mean, really putting it in a different way, and we've talked about this on Political Playback, 5 o'clock every Thursday, live.
Tomorrow night.
On Political Playback, we note it's not about the individual parties. It's about the bloc. And ultimately what you're seeing is the centre-right vote and the centre-left vote being relatively consistent, but just gets divided up differently. And, one of the potential outcomes of what's happened to National this week, and I'm sorry for Luxon, but the leadership speculation is going to haunt him all the way to the election. The centre-right vote probably will drift a bit away from National, and it'll move to New Zealand First and ACT. That's probably what you'll see.
Okay. I just want to grab a photo and get you to analyze it for me. Just stand by, caller. I'm trying to do 6 things at a time. Just while I'm doing this, just go back to that. Oh, just preferred Prime Minister. I mean, he actually got a bump as preferred Prime Minister, but the media didn't seem to want to talk about that, which I found interesting as well.
Oh, look, I think this is the media bias. I mean, where you and I disagree is to the degree of how much the media is driving this versus responding.
Yeah.
But I keep using that word amplify. The media will amplify the problem. So even if there's a whisper, and maybe this is where it all started, one discontented MP after the list ranking, I mean, I'm making this up for illustration's sake, one junior miscontent said a little something to a journalist. Journalist has picked it up and run with it, and here we are today. Almost, as we keep saying, a repeat of whenever the last coup attempt was, right down to the podium, the location, and clearly one very peed off Prime Minister, which I can understand.
Yeah. Okay. This is the hang on. This is the image I want to show you. So this is from the conference just held. You can't get fresher than this, can you? This is like fresh fish at the at the supermarket. This is hot off the press. This is the meeting. So you've got, is Erica there? She's directly behind Luxon. You got Mitchell, who could have challenged. Willis there. Chris doesn't look that happy. Bishop doesn't look that happy. But that's designed to give a united look. We are back. Everything's under control. Are you persuaded, Simon?
Look, I'm a deeply cynical man, as you know. As soon as they all came out, and this is not a reflection on them as individuals, I went, this for me doesn't look strong at all. I think it's the complete opposite. The word I'm probably leaning towards is it's contrived. Hey, look, I mean, it's sort of such an obviously political thing to do that it looks obviously political. Right, okay, I've won, I'm annoyed, we're all going to stand there, the candidates, potential candidates, and senior ministers, and we're all going to stand there and look united. And it doesn't work for me. And so obviously Chris Bishop there on the left, again, whether he was involved or not, he will be worried. Nicola Willis, of course, in some ways, she survived her political fortunes and being effectively the first list rankers because of her relationship with Luxon. Mark Mitchell, because his name keeps being mentioned. Erica right behind him, which ironic. Paul Goldsmith, Simeon Brown, senior ministers. Louise Upson's probably she's a senior minister, but probably a gender issue, and of course the party president. But for me, choreography-wise, didn't work. I have to say that's just me. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Would you have put your money on Erica Stanford being a prime minister? I mean, we saw what Nicola Griggs did, one of the minister for women and one of her friends in cabinet. I always thought that Erica Stanford is an effective minister, but definitely not prime minister material.
Well, I'll make 2 points, and I'll go general first. I think a lot of the times you don't see a prime minister necessarily in wait. In other words, people can be promoted into roles. The same with ministerial posts or even chairships. You look at someone and go, oh God, they'll be terrible, or you don't know. And actually when they're in the role, they excel. So there's always that. I think had there been a change, I think Erica would probably been my pick. Not as in preference, but had there been a change, I had said to you it would be Erica and Bishop as deputy would have been my pick if, for people listening, if there had been a change. And again, whether she could step up to the mark or not, I mean, I personally am not sure. Some people like her are exceptionally good, Bob, and she has an education, but by and large. But have any of them got the skills? Has even Luxon got the skills to actually be able to hold a host of issues and in a sense have your brief across all the portfolio? It's a big challenge.
Yeah. Okay. Look, let me just go back to, so look, if you have just joined us, Luxon survived the coup and he has appeared with other members of the caucus, and it's kind of a united front and back to business, short press conference. So he's basically stared down the challenge, but it did go 3 hours. So that suggests that it wasn't just have you still got your faith in me? Yep. Okay. Well, let's go and do this short media conference. There was obviously 3 hours of, hey, some things have got to change. I mean, has he been slightly scolded, do you think? Has the caucus said to him, well, okay, nobody seems to be any better. You can stay in charge, but man, you got to get these things right.
Always hard to know what happens behind the doors. I mean, it's quite possible that some MPs led the charge at the start. Again, for anyone tuning in, this is all speculation. It could have been that some MPs stood up and took the fight to him.
Yeah.
They'll be feeling very worried now. But at the same time, I strongly suspect lots of what I'd call remonstrations. I suspect Luxon and his supporters once, and particularly once he knew he was secure, would have been lecturing the MPs, whether that goes down well or not. But I think there'd have been a lot of garment rending and strong rhetoric about holding together and unity and all the usual stuff. And look, that's important that it's said. But I'm afraid to say, and again, I used the word wounded this morning, there is no way you can look at this process and say that the National Party or the National Party leader, Prime Minister in this case, hasn't come away wounded or more wounded. This is not done. I'm afraid to say.
Okay, let me just go back to my point that I was making about the media thing, because the interesting thing, well, let's just see what the media were saying. The media were saying roll him or fall behind him. Neither option is great. In fact, neither option is good. Actually, what would you say to that? I think you're sort of echoing that statement, aren't you?
Yeah, I want to make it clear I did not write this piece, but no, I agree. You're doomed if you do or don't now, because unfortunately he is wounded. There's going to be ongoing questions about his leadership. Everything he does will be overanalyzed now, and of course Hipkins and Chloe Srawbrook and all of them, rightly as opposition, are just going to keep reminding people of all of this. But of course, had he been rolled, then all of a sudden all the Nationals planned. So you've got to think with election campaigns, and this is any political party, Bob, they've been planning for months, their radio ads, their TV ads, their billboards. Had there been a change, all up in the air, everything has to be redone. So, it's just messy. But regardless now, lots of hurt feelings, bruised egos, damaged ambition, trust levels low, and very exhausted MPs. So not a particularly good position to be getting into a campaign.
Okay. Look, if you have just joined us, the breaking news is that Luxon has survived the coup, and this was the announcement that he made. I hope this works.
Towards the beehive, but nothing of interest there.
And Katie, we'll just leave it there because Prime Minister Christopher Luxon is about to address media. We'll go straight to that press conference live now.
Luxon.
Well, they're all lined up there, and they seem to be reasonably smiling. Anyway, he came in smiling. It sort of gave it away, didn't it? Anyway, and he leaves us on tenterhooks as well, just like Winston Peters did when he was announcing which party he was going with. Anyway.
Hey, well, kia ora, good morning, everyone. As you know, this is an absolutely pivotal election with some very, very serious issues at stake for New Zealand. We think we have made tremendous progress as a government, rebuilding economic growth, financial discipline, restoring law and order, and certainly strengthening education and healthcare. But we also acknowledge that we have a lot more to do. Our plan to fix the basics and to build the future is a positive plan, a very positive plan to help New Zealand realise the innate potential that it has. There was a confidence vote in my leadership this morning at our caucus meeting, and I have the full support of our caucus. And our caucus is united and it is determined to win this election. Our focus is on National's positive plan to fix the basics and to build the future, so that we realise the incredible potential that sits in this country and that we set it up for our kids and our grandkids so they can do better than we can. It's also an opportunity to frame the choice for voters, which is crystal clear on November the 7th. An opposition that wants to take New Zealand backwards, or a national government that wants to fix the basics and build the future and with a plan that takes New Zealand forward. With that, I want to say thanks everyone. We're going back to work and we're moving on. Thank you very much.
Okay, that was about what, 90 seconds? Yeah, straight to the point.
Exasperated and understandably so. I mean, put yourself in Luxon's camp. I mean, he is trying to do a good job. He wants to be Prime Minister. He believes the rhetoric. And yet he's constantly, he's probably kicking himself for his own stuff-ups. He'll be very frustrated, undoubtedly, by the media coverage. And he's probably very annoyed at colleagues within the caucus. Some he may now know the troublemakers, but to be clear, this is part of the problem with these things. You never quite know. And so he'll be back up on the ninth floor pondering next moves. Because, of course, do you reward those who stepped up and supported you in caucus this morning? Do you demote people? Can you even afford to do so? All of this is swirling. But, looking at the MPs' faces, my former colleagues, exhausted, tired, exasperated. Well,
some of them be relieved, though, because the fact of the matter is they don't have to do, shift offices, change furniture, change door labels, do new business cards. They're not starting again. It's, as he said, 90 seconds, and he says, okay, back to work. We've got to make sure Labor doesn't get in. I mean, in some ways, it's a simple solution, isn't it?
Oh, I think actually those lines really, really good, and a good way to try and shift the moral focus to go, look, you can have your distractions. We're just getting back into it. Yes, I think a lot of them, particularly those that are there, well, most of the ones standing behind him, will be relieved. Like, okay, I just keep my portfolios. We keep going. Had there been a change, it would have been a massive upheaval. So yes, but on the flip side, there will be those that probably will find there has to be some sort of punishment or consequences. It's very difficult, and this has been one of the conundrums for Luxon after the last coup attempt. And remember, he said they did put it to a vote. You don't need to put things to a vote unless there was a reason for a vote. There weren't consequences on some of the supposed troublemakers, which of course sends a signal to the caucus that you can keep making trouble. So let's see if anything happens this time. But again, to be blunt, Luxon is not standing here in any real position of strength, and whether he likes it or not, or the national MPs like it or not, we're going to have at least another week of now post-coup speculations and op-eds. So whether it's Barry Soper or Heather or Ryan Bridge or John Campbell and Ingrid or political playback, 5 o'clock on Thursday, we're all going to be talking about this.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just check some of the comments. Okay. Mike reckons that Erica wants to partner with the Greens. That's not right, is it? Surely not. She's probably liberal, but I don't think she's that liberal, is she?
No, not with the modern Greens. No, she is more to the liberal side, as is someone like Chris Bishop. That said, to be blunt, Luxon hasn't particularly delivered on any conservative front, really, both fiscal or social. Yeah.
Simply Green says the problem is you can do whatever maintenance you want. You can have the band play, you can rearrange the deck chairs, but if you won't even acknowledge existential issues, you're useless. What you're looking at says Luxon needs to surround himself with a new team of political advisors. Might be right there. Maybe he could take a strong stance on his pro-life position. That would be a good start. Carl says the fact Luxon has done virtually nothing on co-governance, like he said 3 years ago, with the influx of Indians, is what will cost him. Well, those are two separate issues, actually. One's immigration, one's co-governance. Yeah, okay. So lots of commentary. And look, we are hoping to get a guest commentator coming through soon. I hope my technology works. Let me just go back to the point I was just making earlier on about the preferred Prime Minister. And, so this is the other poll. I tell you what, your favourite commentator, Andrea Vance, she got it wrong. Potential Erica Stanford leadership. They didn't quite get their way. You can probably hear the wailing from the media newsrooms and at Stuff and New Zealand Herald, One News, Radio New Zealand. I heard a shocking one on Radio New Zealand actually just before you were on, and it wasn't your interview. It was another interview. Let me just play. So they went out to Christchurch and they got a whole lot of vox pops of what people thought. Every one of them was negative to the government and rolling Luxon. Have a listen.
Streets of Christchurch, these people RNZ spoke to think the time is up for the Prime Minister.
Ex-business leaders are never good in politics. It's been proven time and time again. You need politicians, people that can, govern for everyone.
You don't think it's too close to the election for them to be muddling around?
No, I think it's like they're on a hiding to nowhere anyway. So, it's probably better to do something now than wait.
Can they all go? That would be lovely. Just politics in general. At the moment, can all just go. Politicians have become all about being politicians rather than representing the people they're supposed to represent. And so all of that side of things, I think we're a bit over as people.
The disadvantage it might be of changing their leader would be equal to the disadvantage of him staying.
He just didn't show much leadership in recent situation, and all this, what happened with Winston Peter, and no much, I believe it's,
No, I don't think he should. I just don't like the man for some reason. So
I'm
happy to see someone replace.
Oh, there we are. So everybody in Christchurch is against it. That was Radio New Zealand. I thought that was pretty shocking. Anyway, I got a special treat for you because we've got a special guest. Hello, Christine Rankin. How are you? Oh, hang on. I'll press that button. Now I can hear you. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're very excited. And look, we just want to find out, what's your response?
Well, look, I've been in meetings and I haven't heard any of the commentary, but I heard the outcome and I am absolutely delighted, and I hope they just get on with it now. Look, I'm actually a supporter of Erica's, and I think that she could lead the country, but this is the wrong time. And I hate to think what might have happened. She needs a chance at some time in the future, but it isn't now. So I'm relieved, and I just hope they can behave themselves. We've only got 90 days to go, and they need to show us what they can do. This is a perfect opportunity, and I hope this has been the shake-up that they need. It was a pretty risky thing for him to do.
My argument is that this was a media-concocted coup. This wasn't a natural genesis coming from national MPs. Simon and I probably are slightly different on this because he would understand the nuances of where the MPs are at and some of their frustrations, and the list had just come out. But from your perspective, what do you think? Is this a media coup or is this a national MP coup?
I actually think it's media generated. I do think they have wanted this, and they've wanted to make the party look as unstable as possible, and a few people have fed into that. I mean, the media are out to get them in every way, and it's now looking as though we've got a slight turn towards national, and they will be frantic to create as much mischief as they can, I believe. But also the party's done it to themselves, haven't they? He had to establish this today, and this is a private sector way of approaching things, which I totally understand. You've got an issue, you bring it up and you deal with it. And they're all saying, oh, look, this is politics. You can't do that. You just go around and slap the ones who are misbehaving and you get on with it. Well, that's not his experience. His experience would be to bring the team together and say, if you're not supporting me, then there's a different outcome to this. So I understand why he's done it and how he's done it. And I don't think what he's done recently, like saying he might want to look at MMP, is any great crime. That was manufactured. It was part of a conversation, and look how they turned that around, as though he was announcing major policy. When you listen to it, he was not. They're out to get him. There's no doubt about it. They're desperate to stop this coalition being there for the next 3 years. And you've got to be short many sandwiches and that lunch to want the opposite result.
I feel like the Brady Bunch, and I want to look down and say, Simon, you got a question?
Oh, well, look, it's not so much a question, it's a comment. I think, Christine's right, that they can still turn things around. As I said, I think this is messy, it's untidy. No one comes out of this unwounded or damaged in terms of national, but they still have a chance to fix things, to actually speak into the policy areas that matter. But that's going to take a lot of discipline. It's going to take a lot. I suspect, Christine, so this is as much a statement and a question to you, they just got to ignore the media, because I think we all agree the media are more than happy to see Luxon fail and national stumble. I think they've just got to pretty much ignore the media.
Or be very dismissive. There is something to look at in terms of the way Winston does this. They start to play up, he dismisses them and makes them look foolish. Most of the time he wins on that. He's a master at it. Where I think Chris Luxon is a very polite person, and he gets sucked into their horrible way of conducting themselves. And you're right, he's got to ignore it and get on with it and just overwhelm whatever they're saying about him and the party with what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. And they are on the right path. But I do want to say, Simon, too, I've watched you while you've become part of New Zealand First, and New Zealand First, Family First.
What?
And it reminds me of how
Simon, you never told me that.
No, it reminds me of how dirty politics actually is. You are really good, and I admire you. I've loved what I've seen you do and how you conduct yourself and what you're all about. And they gave you a damn hard time because you're a decent person who didn't agree with everything that the mainstream thought in that party. And I just want to acknowledge that. I think you're great. And people like you are missed out frequently or not seen as the stars because how dare you be conservative? How dare you? So I just wanted to acknowledge that for you.
Lots of fans, Christine. Yeah, sorry, Simon. Lots of fans, Christine, agree. Anna agrees with you. Chris says, Christine, you're quite right. Erica is good, but now is not the right time.
It's not. It's not. She deserves to go in under completely different circumstances and be given a chance to be the woman she is as a leader. And for one of her friends in the caucus, or I'm not sure if she's part of cabinet, but to say I'm one of Erica's friends, but she's not a prime minister. Who the hell are you to know whether she is or not? She's shown far more leadership, even if we don't agree with some of the things she's done, than most other people.
Yeah. Okay. Has he done more damage to himself by even going down this track? I mean, should he have just told the media to get stuffed like Winston would?
Yeah, wouldn't that be great if he had? But he hasn't. And so now he's done this. They've come out really strongly about what they're about and where they're going. And now, look, 90 days, every single day, making the most of it and showing how strong and powerful they are, because they damn well could be. You look at their lineup, it is dramatically different than the left, any part of the left. They've got one minister after another that's got talent. And you can't say that about the left. It's nowhere. Where is it from the leader down?
Yeah.
I mean, Christine, if I could jump in, Bob, just from, I mean, repercussions. I mean, you and I have both been in politics, and it's a twofold question. Does there need to be repercussions now within National for those who are or perceived to be the troublemakers? And second to that, is Luxon strong enough after this to be able to do so? Or is it just going to precipitate further problems?
Well, he better. And if it was me, I'd be dealing with them very strongly indeed. And hopefully he is doing that in the background because they can't be allowed away with this. This is very self-serving. This isn't for the country. It was absolutely for those backbenchers who thought they were going to lose their jobs. So disgusting behaviour, and I'd be dealing to them right up front, and boy, they better not put one tiny finger out of line in the next 90 days is what I would be saying, and they would have no place in my cabinet in the future if that were me, and I'm sure you would do the same.
Okay, Christine, Susie, who you know from the Straight Talk panel, says, but Luxon does end up looking better for it. New Zealanders dislike media much more now, so their bullying of Luxon is perceived as such. I think there's relevance to that point. I think Susie's right on that one.
I agree. And I was feeling that yesterday. I was thinking this is absolutely wrong and they have gone far too far. And I think they continue it at their peril. I think he will gain more support. It was always dicey and there are going to be some negatives from it, but there are going to be positives as well. I'm sure of it.
Okay, and Rosie says, Christine, that was Nicola Grigg, who doesn't even know what a woman is. She's the minister, a woman, but she's a woman herself.
Well, there you go. There you go.
Simon, are you as convinced as Christine is that Erica's a future leader of the party? I'm not.
Oh, I think it is potential, and please don't take it the wrong way. I think she's actually done really well in like the education portfolio. She comes across well. But
she reminds me of
really
Jacinda. That's a problem. That's a scary thing, Christine.
No, she's nothing like Jacinda. Nothing.
I think she's more capable than Jacinda. As I say, the real test for anyone, whether it's Erica, is whether they can move from just sort of a single portfolio to the breadth which a prime minister needs. But without trying to sound harsh about my former colleagues, and the same applies to Labour, there isn't really a long list of potential leaders. And part of that, of course, is no current leader wants to have a whole list of heir presumptives behind them. But also, I think you're seeing political parties, and I really do want to stress this is not just simply national, are seeing more of a managerial grouping come through. And so there are very few characters. There are very few people who go, oh, there's a future leader. And in some ways, even with Luxon, to a degree, Hipkins, it's sort of a contrived result. Oh, let's get these people that tick these boxes and it'll work. Well, it doesn't necessarily.
Bob, I want to challenge you, because what man would you say that about? Oh, he reminds me of, I don't know, some awful bloke, Chippy. He reminds me of Chippy, can't possibly be a decent leader. She reminds you of Jacinda because they're both good-looking women, and good God help women who are good-looking. They cannot possibly have any leadership.
Oh, but I would vote for you, Christine. You know that I would vote for you. No, I think it was just the media fawning over her, and also I know that on the social issues, Erica is quite liberal.
And look, I absolutely agree with that, but you are not ever going to get a perfect Prime Minister. You're never going to get a perfect anything. And you look at her determination in that education portfolio. Yeah, she's had a hell of a lot of pushback, just so much pushback. And she's courageous and strong and determined and driven. And aren't those the qualities we're looking for in a leader in the future? I'm certainly not saying now. But, you know, I've met her quite a few times and talked with her at some length, and her heart is absolutely in the right place, and I love her determination. I haven't met many others in that party that I feel like that about. They all seem to avoid trouble, you know, stay as neutral as you can, be in the middle of everything, don't take a stand. This country needs something different going into the future, and Labour and the Greens and Te Pāti Māori and please, Lord, help us, Top, are not going to provide it, are they?
No, very scary. All right, we will let you back to your important work at Taupo Hospice. Thank you, Christine. Really appreciate your time today.
Lovely to see you both.
Okay.
Great to see you.
Bye.
Bye. There we go. All right, let's just check a couple of other things. Look, one of the things I did cover this morning, Simon, just on that social conservative vote, is I did look at the voting record of some of the alternatives that we might have got. Chris Bishop, he scored a grand, where's the percentage there? 18%, 19%. It's hard to see, actually. It's quite small, isn't it? Is that 18 or 17? And then I looked at Erica's. Erica was at 22%. And Nicola Willis was, that wasn't too high either. So you have got a very liberal leadership. Of course, then somebody said, well, what about Luxon? And I had a look at his voting record, and he was only one above Erica. So what it shows is just how far in the social conservative side of things the leadership of the National Party have gone, which, I mean, I know you would have come up and butted your head against constantly.
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple factors here. I mean, part of it is a lot of people who are leaders or contenders for leadership are indulged by the media if they're liberal. Secondly, you know, a lot of the conservatives, the traditional conservatives in National, are being pushed out. You know, I see myself as one of them. Alfred Nara is another good example. Of course, there are still some there, but the days of having a good tension between the liberal and the conservative wing of National is gone. And so that's an issue there. It's why, you know, a lot of people have gone to the likes of New Zealand First. I think it's one of the drivers. So yeah, on that front, it really didn't matter who the leadership changed to, unless it had changed. Put it this way, maybe I should phrase it this way: and it wasn't on the table, had the National MPs chosen to replace Chris Luxon with a die-in-the-wall, clear conservative, both fiscal and social, you might have seen actually some vote pulled back from the likes of New Zealand First and ACT. But it doesn't matter who the names. In fact, all of them you've put there, none of that would change on that social conservative front. Yeah.
Okay. We're very exciting today because we've got another guest, none other than Ashley Church. How are you, Ashley?
I'm very, very good. I'm just now second thinking my background because I'm seeing that you two have got.
Yeah, no, that's okay. You look very formal, and I'm just stoked that my technical expertise is working with a quick lesson from our producer Gordon this morning. Anyway,
I'm just worried that Ashley is clearly at Parliament, was waiting for an opportunity to ascend the prime ministerial throne.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true. In fact, they're behind me here anyway. So,
anyway, Ashley, what were you? Actually, I'm sorry. I'm just going to go back through my texts and see what you were predicting. Were you right?
Well, I was right in terms of a conversation I've just had, so I'm assuming I had the same one with you, which is that he would survive.
Right.
Not because I necessarily felt that he should, but because that was the only obvious and logical choice, and I'll be interested in Simon's view on this. I think that caucus is so divided that it was almost going to be almost impossible to find an alternative candidate. But I don't even know if it got to that because the confidence vote would have been first, and that would have been relatively quick, I think. So I'm assuming that the 2.5 hours after that was a cup of tea and a chat about the problems that the party was facing.
I think it's possibly a mix. I mean, just my take. I think, my view, this was on a knife edge, and said on TV this morning that if actually there was someone to coalesce behind, if there could be someone who clearly came out, I think the caucus would have voted for change. That clearly didn't happen, whether they didn't put their hand up or the people who were meant to back them didn't. The second point, I suspect they probably spent the first hour or so bantering away and airing grievances. Then they would have moved to a vote. I could imagine Luxon say, all right, we're just going to have a vote. Let's just have a vote. Let's just put it down. And then you're dead right. There would have been a lot of lecturing, remonstrations, and talk of party unity. But I'll say this, talk is cheap. And that division remains. And in fact, I think MPs will be even more hurt. That's my take, Ashley, after what's happened.
So here's the thing, Simon. This is, I have contempt for these guys at the moment because this isn't about the best interests of the country. This was never about what's going to help New Zealand to move forward, as a better leader, going to put us in a stronger position. This is entirely about MPs who see their seats slipping away as a result of the poll ratings and their desperate attempt to try and install somebody who might get those ratings up enough to keep their seat. And it's hard to have any respect for that. And the interesting thing about it is that. And I hold this view strongly, and I'll be interested to see if I'm right at election. This was never about losing the election. The centre-right bloc is not going to lose the election. It's going to win the election. It might be close, but it's going to win the election. So the people that might be disenchanted with National at the moment are not suddenly saying, I know, I'm going to go and vote for the Labour bloc. They're going to go with New Zealand First or ACT. And the National MPs know this. So this is all about self-preservation and survival. It's got nothing to do with keeping the centre-right government in place.
Look, 100%. Bob and I touched on that just a little bit earlier, that actually the centre-left, centre-right bloc votes aren't changing. If people are dissatisfied with Labour, they've moved to top. When they're upset with National, they move to ACT in New Zealand First. Now, I wrote a Substack, called it, I think, Rinse and Repeat a few months back. This is ego, this is ambition of individuals who are putting themselves first, and will keep doing so, is what I wrote then, and I still believe it now, because actually they are always going to put their self-interest first. Current polling, as you've touched on, Ashley, the list has really highlighted that. And for me, it's also got echoes of what happened to Simon Bridges. MPs, it's laughable now. We were in like the 40%, but MPs were losing their nerve.
Ashley, can I give my theory?
Sure.
I understand where Simon's coming from, and he, as I said, he understands the nuance of what's going on amongst MPs and what they're thinking. I still would argue that this was a media concocted coup. It started off with Thomas Coughlan from the New Zealand Herald on Monday saying that he'd heard a whisper from one person, unnamed, and it just snowballed from there. And what I wanted to ask you, Ashley, is that as a business leader, would you have listened to that media narrative? The bit that drives me nuts about National is that they test everything against what they think the media is going to respond, rather than just saying, stuff your media, we've got a plan, we've got a ideology, and we're going to press ahead with it because we were voted in. But they don't seem to do that. And that's,
I don't think there's any question. Yeah, I don't think there's any question that the media are complicit in this. And in fact, this has been extraordinary over the last 3 years. They don't even make a secret of it anymore. The media obsession with trying to bring this government down. I mean, you've only got to look at the fact that there's no scrutiny going on of Hipkins and the fact that they're polling at 25%. None of that.
Exactly.
This is a party that's supposedly going to be in power and 3 months' time it's not. But the media would have you believe that that's ready for government. No scrutiny of the fact that they're dropping through the floor. This is all about attacking them. And it's interesting because a big chunk of this is Luxon himself. Let's take the MMP announcement a week or so back, which, by the way, I didn't have a problem with. I think it was a perfectly reasonable thing to say. But even if you don't, he would have got away with that. Nobody would have questioned Key on the fact that he raised that. They would have accepted that it was a captain's call and he'd done it. But everything that comes out of Luxon's mouth gets scrutinised, gets turned over and looked at to see whether there's some way of making it into a negative. But if you go back far enough, and again, I'll be interested in Simon's view on this, if you look at where National are at the moment, this isn't symptomatic of Luxon's leadership on its own. He has to take some blame for it. This goes back to before the last election. This goes back to a party that came into government on the tide of discontent and anger at the previous government with a mandate to make an enormous amount of change quickly, who then somehow, once they got into government, transformed into another party and decided that not only were they not going to do the things that they had said they were going to do in their manifesto, but in fact that they were going to carry on with some of the stuff that the previous government had done. And the fact that they do that and have continued to do that against the public anger that's been rising as a result of the last 2 or 3 years does my head, and I do not understand. The only thing I can put it down to is the fact that caucus has moved so far to the left that they actually don't recognise that they're no longer the National Party of old.
Well, that was the point I was just making based on our value your vote assessment. Simon, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, look, the National Party, and I'd argue actually Labour's a bit the same, they've drifted from their fundamental values. And so it now becomes much more, pragmatic. What are the polls saying? What makes us look good? Let's do what is supposedly popular. I use that word supposedly because actually, as we've talked a lot, actually, the three of us and others on Straight Talk, Political Playback, it's what they think the media is believing is popular, not necessarily on the ground, which is why, despite the evidence of moving the vote moving from National to the likes of New Zealand First and ACT, National keeps pitching to the mainstream media.
Yeah.
So yes, to that.
That's a very good line, Simon. I like that line. Pitching to the mainstream media. That's what I feel like. That's National's, modus operandi. Just how are we going to pitch this to the media? No, pitch it to your constituents.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a problem, and for Luxon too. Look, he has to take some blame for this. It's not blameless, and to be completely pragmatic and somewhat ruthless about it. It's dead right they target him and they put the boot in every opportunity, but that's the reality. And so you've got to adapt. You can't sit there and complain. You're going to have to be more disciplined. Certainly, lots of frustration that I pick up as I travel around the country from people who wanted to see faster change. And it's the classic. I remember Helen Clark used to, and rightly said, you under promise and over deliver. And sadly for National, it's gone the other way. People really thought there'd be change, and it hasn't. In fact, things in some ways have got worse. But the only last point I'd make, I think a lot of this goes back to the Key era. And it's not that it was Key's fault. I really want to be clear about that. But since Key, the direction of the party has drifted, particularly after he left. Ever since then, and Bill English did a great job, and Simon was trying, but the ambitions of people were sort of held down under the Key era. And ever since then, I think there's been trouble within the party, trouble around leadership, trouble with the personalities who are there. And a lot of the troubles, starting from the Key era, are still there now because of the same people are there. People who were appointed, parachuted in, given patronage. So it goes back quite a long way.
How much of that, though, Simon, comes down to the changing composition of that caucus, the rise of the young woman MP, the Nicola Greggs who admire Jacinda Ardern and believe more in the philosophy of that government than they do of the sorts of things that would traditionally be associated with the national government? How much of it's that? How much of it? I mean, I put this party, I'll be interested in your view, guys. I put this party, this current National Party, in roughly the same space as Helen Clark's government was in the early 2000s. So it's no longer a national government in the sense that I understand that term. It's more akin to the Labor government that Helen Clark presided over, and slipping further and further to the left, in my view. So how much of it's about the people? How much of it's about the change in the caucus?
Oh, it's definitely the people. The people change the focus and move away from the values. I mean, one of the ironies, and I won't name names, the party's got about 6 aims or goals or whatever it says, key points, but a lot of the MPs wouldn't agree with them. I mean, even the first one, loyalty to the sovereign and as our head of state and our democracy, and a lot of them would go, don't really believe in that. You don't have to, but they're just not linked. So yeah, long and short, the people do change the culture. They don't bring in the traditional national values. And this is a broad comment because it doesn't apply to everyone, but we're seeing the rise of sort of the political staffer or the former staffers, and they've just been inculcated, often young, inculcated in politics, and they play politics for the sake of politics rather than, okay, this is a tool or a mechanism to advance change. And again, it doesn't matter if it's in Labour or National, you've just got a rise. I mean, Hipkins, former staffer, Erica Stanford, former staffer, Nicola Willis, former staffer, Chris Bishop, former staffer. It just goes on and on and on. Megan Woods, I think, as well.
Isn't that historic? I mean, Michael Law's former staffer, if you go back far enough. So hasn't that always happened?
Yes, but you're getting them in much greater numbers now. And I think you're seeing with selections, a lot more people who are just often young, know how to give a good speech because I've often been writing them for MPs, give a slick presentation, but then actually don't have the depth. And so then they come into Parliament and they just replicate what they've seen around the machinations. They've watched too many House of Cards, and it's just all about the machinations and advancing, and it's about me, the individual, getting forward rather than the promotion of a political vision.
So Simon, where's the tipping point that takes us to where the UK is and Australia is and Italy is and Hungary is and these other nations that have finally, where the people have finally had a gutsful and are looking for alternatives, not just to be minor parties in a government, but to be the government? When does that happen? And whether it's New Zealand First or somebody else, I don't know. But when do we get to that tipping point?
I'd say we're probably within 3 to 5 years. I think if we continue the current trajectory into the next 3 years, I think there will be major issues. I mean, economically, as you know better than me, the metrics ain't good. But there probably needs to be two other things that kick in. One, I think a new party or a new personality. Winston is obviously achieving somewhat, but I don't think he's at the Maloney, Farage, Pauline Hanson level, partly because he's been around so long. And secondly, there'll be a new precipitated crisis. Something else needs to be injected into the mix that sort of makes New Zealanders wake up. I don't know, Bob.
So immigration or Islam or something like another nation.
Could be something like that, or it'll be another massive financial, a bank collapses for some reason. I mean, I'm theorizing here, but yes, it could be an Islamic attack, major immigration problems. I mean, massive trade. What's the word? Revenge. I'm losing my English, but China hits us hard for some reason. All of that precipitates something, but. I don't know, we've left Bob out. I mean, have you got any deep insights?
I would just say I'd agree with you in terms of the timeline. I think that as you know, I believe that the media have pushed a very strong narrative. They're concocting these coups. They're going after Luxon. They're not giving Hipkins the same type of scrutiny. They're not giving the Opportunity Party any scrutiny. And so they're pushing a very strong narrative in one direction. I mean, as you know, we faced that in the cannabis referendum and the abortion debate and the conversion therapy. We documented just how biased it was. But as social media rises, and look, there's hundreds watching us right now, and there's other alternatives. I know that Duncan Garner is broadcasting. I know that Platform is growing. RCR is there. As these alternatives grow, this alternative voice will start to kick in, and that's why the mainstream media hates social media. That's why they're trying to use the ASA to go after Sean Plunkett, because they feel so threatened.
Yeah, the interesting thing about that, though, is despite, because you're right, despite the fact that the media have been so proactive in this space and trying to get rid of this government, that's almost made the punters dig in even more. And in fact, I would argue that that's actually been a contributing factor to the fact that the coalition's support is holding up regardless of the fact that there's been these issues, because people don't trust them. They've had a gutsful of them. And they're not prepared to give them the time of day. What's also interesting, you mentioned the show, Straight Talk, and what Duncan's doing, what the platform's doing. I would argue that to some degree, the fact that we're now seeing change of the type that we're seeing, including this leadership challenge, is actually a direct reflection of the fact that that stuff's actually starting to make a difference. There wasn't an alternative voice 3 years ago. In fact, there was a government 3 years ago that was trying to close down any ability to have a counter position. Now you've actually got alternative voices which are growing, and those platforms are growing, and I think that's a really healthy part of our democracy, but we've got to have more of it.
And see, this is the point. I mean, Susie, from Straight Talk Ashley, she said this, Luxon ends up looking better for this because New Zealanders dislike the media much more, and so they've seen them bully Luxon, and he's actually faced up to them. Would you agree with
Totally.
it?
I completely agree with that. And in fact, the one good thing that's come out, firstly, this was the right result. So I'm convinced that if it was a choice between Luxon staying on or Erica Stanford or somebody else, as much as I like her and think she's done a great job, that would have been completely the wrong message. It would have looked desperate. So the fact that he's staying on confirms his position. But yeah, secondly, the fact that it's almost an up you to the media. And the public love that. The public know where this is coming from, certainly the immediacy of it. They recognise that the media is trying to make it happen, and the fact that he survived it is just another feather in a weird feather, but a feather in Luxon's cap. So I agree with Susie completely.
Although, Simon, you would say this is a lose overall.
Look, I would overall. I think it's just very untidy. I think a lot of people aren't actually following politics or the media as deeply as we do. I often talk about it's just information washing over people. They just know, oh, there's more trouble with Luxon, there's more trouble with National. And so I think, for me, I don't quite agree. It's not disagreement, just more nuance. I think, is this a loss for media? Absolutely. Once again, second time in almost as many months, they've kicked up this whopping story and they've proven to be wrong. But I think at the other side, it is still damaging, I'm sorry to say, for Chris Luxon. I'd agree with Ashley. Had they changed now, it would have looked desperate. It would have thrown the entire campaign into flux. Just pragmatically, you've got to go and get everything resorted. But I still think he takes damage. And I think I might have said at the start, the opposition will understandably remind voters every day, every week up to the election, that he's been facing these leadership challenges. And Hipkins, I predict it now, will be stirring or pushing at that wound in all the debates.
There's another aspect to this, Simon, and both Key and Clark were masters at what I'm about to say, and I don't understand why Luxon hasn't done it. Normally, 3 or 4 months out before an election, the leader will change the lineup. They'll bring in some fresh talent that we perhaps weren't familiar with. They'll maybe change a minister around into another portfolio, the point of which is to go into the campaign saying, we've still got plenty of life in us. We're changing this around to bring some new energy and some new life to what we're doing. I do not understand why that hasn't happened. Because that simple act would actually make a difference to the way that we perceive this government. If we moved Goldsmith, really good example that comes to mind, into another portfolio where he couldn't do any damage, or some of these others, and bring up some of the new talent coming up through that caucus, but there's none of that.
Well, I think unfortunately it's because Luxon is weak, and the caucus is riven, and so. I often say for someone to go up, someone has to go down, and there's not a lot of wiggle room. And so, had he done a change, I think you're right. It would have looked fresh, but I think that would have caused a lot of upset in an area that is still volatile. I do not believe that this was just a manifestation of media, and that actually everyone in the caucus is happy, and this was just and none of you are saying this, but there's tension. There are problems. Problem at mill, to quote Monty Python. And so to make these changes, and the element that I think pushes into this was the list. The list was boring. Almost no change. Why? Because change is dangerous.
Well, so here's another question. So you're just while we're talking about the list, there is
nice having you here, Bob. We'll see you in a minute.
I'm just monitoring the chat. Everybody's agreeing with you.
It's the contempt of familiarity. So there is a possibility at the moment. I don't know whether it's actually going to happen, but the way their list vote's looking at the moment, there is a very real, because I think their share of the electorate vote is about 36-37%. There is a possibility we'll actually have a national overhang, and which means that we have more national MPs than they're entitled to under the list vote, which is a fascinating scenario, which would actually weirdly favour the Nationals' prospects going into another government. But it's an indictment on the support that they've got at this point in the electoral cycle.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so hard to predict where it's going. There's some cities it could even be an overhang with Te Pāti Māori, but I think it's very unlikely. But look, it's clear there's a lot of nervousness within the National Caucus around current polling and what that means for the listies. I think on the current 31%, they might bring one in, but this is then part of the further tensions that are in the party between your senior list MPs or high-ranked ones. Because if you're low-ranked on the list, it's a moot point. But if you're one of those high-ranked list MPs, so Nicola Willis, Chris Bishop, Jerry Brownlee, Nancy Liu, amongst some others, you're looking at your electorate colleagues and going, it'd be really good if you lost. They wouldn't say it out loud, but they're looking at some of their swing seats. And so that's a very destructive mindset, because what's going to happen is, oh, no, I can't come and speak in your electorate, or they're going to actually brief against you in the media. So that distrust, I suppose, I'm a very long way of saying that now tension between the list and the electorates is very evident, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out in the campaign.
Just before you go, Ashley, I just want to play you the announcement. I don't know if you've seen it, but this was Luxon's speech. Only went for 90 seconds.
Hey, well, kia ora, good morning, everyone. As you know, this is an absolutely pivotal election with some very, very serious issues at stake for New Zealand. We think we have made tremendous progress as a government, rebuilding economic growth, financial discipline, restoring law and order, and certainly strengthening education and healthcare. But we also acknowledge that we have a lot more to do. Our plan to fix the basics and to build the future is a positive plan, a very positive plan to help New Zealand realise the innate potential that it has. There was a confidence vote in my leadership this morning at our caucus meeting, and I have the full support of our caucus.
Cool.
Our caucus is united and it is determined to win this election. Our focus is on National's positive plan to fix the basics and to build the future, so that we realise the incredible potential that sits in this country, and that we set it up for our kids and our grandkids so they can do better than we can. It's also an opportunity to frame the choice for voters, which is crystal clear on November the 7th. An opposition that wants to take New Zealand backwards, or a national government that wants to fix the basics and build the future, and with a plan that takes New Zealand forward. With that, I want to say thanks, everyone. We're going back to work and we're moving on. Thank you very much.
Okay, seem to have the support there, Ashley. Just before you comment on that, Ashley, Mrs. Angry H said, started with good morning. Funny thing is, yeah, it was about 1:45 when he made that announcement. So just a minor fact check there. But are you persuaded? I mean, he didn't need to say a lot, did he? I mean, he's basically saying he's had unanimous support of the caucus.
Well, he hasn't. I mean, that's but straight away, the fact that he said he had a confidence vote and then has unanimous support, only one of those two things can be true. So straight away, that's not true. However, he could argue that he had unanimous support after the confidence vote.
Right.
But anyway, it was a weird. Sort of thinking about it, maybe it was the right way to handle it. It was this isn't a big deal. We're basically getting on with working for the country. But I kind of thought there might be something. I mean, they had 2.5 hours to eat scones and have a cuppa. You would have thought that.
Politicians aren't that bright. They take a while to think things through.
You would have thought that they could have come up with something a little bit more rousing by way of the announcement. But maybe he was right. Maybe there was nothing else that needed to be said. I survived. Here I am. I'm back to work. See you on Monday. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Just before you go, just 2 comments. Helen says politics is a blood sport. Luxon has survived the latest bunch of bloodhounds. The next hunt's likely being planned right now after the dogs have licked their wounds for a few days. And actually, I'll have to run this by Christine. Dawn says, sadly, Erica is very woke, participates in the Pride Parade every year, as does Bishop and others of National proudly waving a banner. She's also strong in her stance, abortion to birth, as was Bishop. I had a rather heated debate with him. That's Dawn Bedingfield. Actually, Peter Williams put out a Substack today saying how disastrous Erica would be in the social conservative domain. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Well, it's interesting. I did see it, and I probably agree with him. So in terms of economic direction and strategic direction, I've been a supporter of Stanford for a while. And so if they were having a leadership change and I was asked who I thought would be a good leader, I would probably put her up the top. But Peter's absolutely right on the social policy stuff. She's a disaster. But then so's most of their caucus. So's Bishop. So's Willis. I mean, these are people who don't hold to the values that Family First does. The values that once upon a time were the bedrock of National have now drifted. That's what I was talking about before when I was talking about the drift to the left. So if you're looking for a leader within that party, I don't know who that would be.
So that's what I want to ask you. Is Winston or Seymour going to do good out of this?
Oh, yeah, they are. And it's interesting because the media was talking yesterday about how Hipkins would be rubbing his hands together. It's got nothing to do with it because Hipkins isn't going to benefit from this. Acton New Zealand First Day. You watch over the next couple of polls as Winston's 12% becomes 13 or even 14%. Disgruntled Nats are not going to the left. They're going to one of those other two parties within the coalition.
Well, here's the interesting thing, Ashley, and I was going to talk about this shortly with Simon once we beat you off the feed, and that is that today there's a One News Varian poll coming out, and it's coming out at 6 o'clock. And One News only released the leadership standings, and the leadership standings showed this is why I am telling people to be wary of this media concocted coup, because the media, TV1 only published the leadership figures, which showed that Luxon had gone down one, but he was still 2 ahead of Hipkins.
Wow.
And they haven't released the party vote. Now, I'm not a betting man, but I would say at 6 o'clock, we're going to find out that actually National hasn't done too badly in the party. It's going to be really interesting to see if One News Varian poll echoes what Roy Morgan and Courier, which is that Labour are plummeting. But why didn't they release that data as well? They only released the leadership one. This is the whole narrative that the media are pushing, the legacy or lamestream media, as I call it.
Couldn't agree with you more. Interestingly, you just talking about that, it'll be interesting to see what happens to Top too, because despite all of the media permutations on this, Top's benefit, Top is gaining at the expense of Labor, not National. You look at the polls, they're going up and Labor's going down. So despite the best attempts of the media to change the government, ain't going to happen.
Always good having Ashley. Before I boot him off the feed, Simon, did you have any question for him?
No, I think it's good. I mean, this has actually been really, really good, both Ashley and Chris. I mean, all of us actually. It's just the different perspectives. Interesting where they align and then points of difference. But no, Ashley, thanks for being on.
Yeah. All very good. Welcome, Thanks, Ashley. Okay, see ya.
Ta-da.
Okay, look, let me just, I do just want to cover that. Everybody's up for a chat today. Numbers are still growing. Nice to have you on board, just in case you've just joined us. The reason is because there was an attempt to take out the Prime Minister and he survived it. And they carry on as normal. So that's nice. I don't need to go and revisit the Value Your Vote pamphlet. Not that he's got the greatest voting record on some of the issues we're concerned about, Simon, as you well know. But I do just want to go back to those two polls, because I think the media were quite sneaky this morning. And this sort of fed into my media concocted coup. So One News released a poll, and their poll, actually, they did this nice little graphic. This is the preferred Prime Minister's ratings, and you'll see there it starts in 2024, finishes in 2026, and you'll see there he's always slightly ahead of Hipkins, then he drops, and now he's just popped up, and that's the latest. He's on 18. They say that's terrible, but they don't tell you that Hipkins is on 16. Okay, and Winston's not doing too bad. They're on 10, is he? But it's always what I've argued, that Luxon always is around, within the margin of error, he's around, oh no, that's quite high, 27 he got up to. That was sort of when the term first started. He's always hovered around the 21, 22, 23, which is margin of error. I've always said that's his go-to, and he's never been that much more popular. Okay, so that was One News Variant poll that dropped this morning, but they only dropped the Prime Minister aspect. They didn't drop the party vote. I'm really suspicious about that. My suspicion will be proved true at 6 o'clock, depending on what the result is. But then Stuff dropped a poll. Who do they want as leader and who should replace? If Christopher Luxon were to resign, who should be the replacement? This was released this morning while the caucus were in their meeting. And as you can see there, 15%, well, I think you go on national voters, because to be honest, I don't care about the voters of people nationwide. I'm interested in national voters because it's whether they hold on to that vote or attract old ones back. Chris Bishop, 19, Nicola Willis, 16, Mark Mitchell, Erica Stanford, Simeon Brown, but that's a massive unsure, way above, so that means that people aren't sold on any of those alternatives, but they basically, the headline was, Chris Bishop is should be the next in line according to the voters. They also said this: how do you view the following politicians? Now, once again, this actually undid what they were saying, because the light green is favourable. And of all those 5 options, look who was most favourable. Now, yes, there is more unfavourable there and less unsure, but that's because he's in front of the camera every day making decisions. Anyway, look, Simon, what do you think? I just thought the media were up to some dirty tricks this morning, releasing polls like this. But as you say, would MPs be seeing any of these? They're not allowed their mobile phones in the caucus room, are they?
No, I think it's probably for me, it's not so much that they shared it today, it's that they did not share this earlier or added into the commentary. I have no doubt that the first set is at Verizon you mentioned. They would have had that data days ago, but they've most likely chosen to hold on to it. And so, yeah, in terms of today, once the
actually, that's a very good point, because you're right. I think Monday night is normally when I see the One News Varian poll. Maybe it was for this weekend. Normally they hold it for a light news day. So coming out on a Wednesday midweek is, you're right. That's a good point, actually. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, so they probably held on to it, which may indicate actually it was better news for National. And if that's the case, I think it strengthens your argument that actually they are doing all they can to undermine Luxon. Because, yeah, if the party vote was better and his leadership vote was more positive in the poll, they've said, oh, let's just hold it until
See, this is what One News, this was their breaking news this morning. Luxon's PM rating drops again, continuing the trend of his time in office. Well, this is the trend, and he's constantly in charge in front of Hipkins. He's holding around the same bit. Yes, there is a bit of a drop. Beginning of this year, definitely a bit of a drop. And, he's back on top. So notice the difference in the narrative. And, of course, they don't say anything about Hipkins. Free pass. I would love being a leader of the Labour Party. It must be so cushy.
I have no doubt this is a terrible frustration to Luxon and his team and the wider National Caucus that, yeah, Labour basically gets a free ride. Think about even granted, there were personal issues confronting Chris Hipkins was at the start of the year, but that was even quite a light touch. So I'm sure there's those frustrations without, again, sounding too ultra pragmatic. Luxon and National have to accept that's the situation, because I mean, you and I and others, we can rage about it and rightly comment about it, but that's the situation. And so you just got to deal with it and try to work ways around it, which, includes ignoring the media. To your point very quickly this morning, once the MPs went into the caucus room at 9:30, none of the commentary that you and I were seeing, release of poll data, none of that is accessible to them. They don't take any devices in. So none of that would have had an influence. But as I say, if polls and information was held back, which, it's the media's editorial decision, that will be striking, and doubly so, Bob, if, as you say tonight, it's a positive message for Luxon and National, and they chose not to publish it before this vote today.
Yeah, I do just want to respond to this comment because I've seen it so often. I have never been polled. I don't answer private calls. Most people are the same. How realistic are the results? How do you respond to that, Simon?
Oh, look, I'm not a polling expert by any means, but when I've talked to different polling companies or they've talked to us, they admit most people don't have landlines now, but they do seem to do a mix. Some of it's online, some of it's via like email, others they've got cell phone numbers. So look, I know I've not been polled. My wife does get called by different companies from time to time. So I think we can have some confidence. I don't think it's all concocted and made up, but you do certainly want, as you do, Bob, to look under the hood. Look at the engine, because sometimes you'll see a poll and you find out, it's 1,000 people from an online newspaper server. Well, that's hardly reliable. But I think a lot of others rely on, they've got the cell phone numbers, and once they do have people, they will go back to them quite a bit. I think you can have some confidence, or rather we don't have to completely dismiss it because of the lack of landlines.
Okay, look, some people need to get back to housework or work or study or whatever they were doing. Lunch. Just a couple of quick questions to finish with. Look, the these could have been, any one of these 5 could have been Prime Minister today. What are they feeling? Are they going to be relieved? Is it business as normal, or is caucus going to be battered and bruised, and they're going to go back, and there's going to be a whole lot of soul searching, and it's going to be a nasty couple of days?
It's sort of a mixture of all of the above. I think there'll be a lot of hurt. There'll be a lot of frustration. There'll be a lot of anger. I don't think that'll be anger of people yelling at each other, but there'll be immense frustration.
What will the anger be at? Will it be at those who tried to do it, or Luxon for holding his ground, at the media?
Again, all a bit of a mix. Depends on which side of the fence different people sit with. If you were one of the coup plotters, if you were one of the people who had ambition, you will be angry that you haven't succeeded. It's embarrassing. You'll be worried that your colleagues will now be angry at you. I think wider, those who supported the Prime Minister at the very least said, look, we just got to hold. We know we've had this debate back in whenever it was. We just got to hold our form and our line. They'll be very frustrated that, again, they've lost another week. As I say, things have been said. You use the comments of Nicola Gregg. There'll be lots of comments like that will have been made in private. They don't get forgotten. And so all of that will just be adding to the mistrust, the distrust, the frustration. And then just something as simple and low level, Bob, as these MPs, think about them from the likes of deep down south or in the far north. I mean, these guys had to drive for hours to get to an airport, to fly, to be at this meeting. What have they missed out on? Kids prize, well, that won't be the case, but something, the kids dance competition, the Rotary group they promised to speak at. So all of this feeds into just like, what are we doing?
Okay. Look, lots more to talk about. And look, everybody here, has been a great crowd watching the whole time. Lots of comments coming in. And interestingly, it's not only your wife that's been polled. What you're looking at, Willis says, I've been polled twice in the last 5 years. Last one just 2 weeks ago by Courier. My response to just that polling question is you do need to take notice of it. I think you need to take notice of trend lines, because even if the polling isn't perfect, it will be picking up trends. Be wary of any polling companies that use online platforms, and I think that's one of the weaknesses of the Roy Morgan poll. So do look for the random audience. That's why we use Courier Market Research ourselves, because they are fairly accurate. But I did also look at the analysis after the last election and what the polling companies were polling around. Look, there was a slight uptick to national that the polling companies hadn't picked up. But in general, they were pretty close. In fact, some of the parties, they were spot on. So I think we ignore the polls at our peril. We need to look at the trend, and that's why I say this Courier Market Research trend shows that Labor should be worried. The more they've not come out with policy, and the more that Hipkins talks and just whines about National and the government, his polling's going down. So I'm going to be super fascinated to see the One News Variant poll tonight at 6:00, and whether I'm right that they held it back because National did quite well, which would suggest an agenda by One News, but also, is Labor still in freefall? Because I think that's the real story, but the media, as we saw, they dropped 3.7. That's a big drop in a month, but media won't talk about it.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see, as you mentioned, where it goes tonight. I think if, as I said, the polling results are positive for National and they weren't reported before the vote, I think you can make a reasonable conclusion of a bias at play there, or an intention. Look, I just say around polls, they're a tool. They're not gospel truth. I don't think we should be obsessed with them, but you're right. It's the trend, and I always see them as indications. And it doesn't matter if, National's at 35 or 29. It's all about the ratios. How is it playing out? As you say, what's the trend? So you don't ignore them, don't dismiss them, but don't also expect them to be absolutely correct. But, they ballpark stuff. Yeah, as I say, they're a tool. They're a useful tool politically to understand what is and is not happening.
Yeah. All right, we're out of time. Simon, you'll be back tomorrow morning with Solid Ground at 7:30. I'm sure you'll have some more commentary as some more commentary is made by the parties involved, and political playback tomorrow night at 5 o'clock. And we'll analyse this. And has anything else happened in the political world? This is the only thing that's been going on. It feels like, no, there is a lot actually. So we will talk about that. Thank you, Simon, and thank you to everybody watching. See Simon on Solid Ground tomorrow morning at 7:30. Until then, have a great day.